Let's bow our heads for a prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you. I feel impressed to thank you for the people of this church who have worked so hard to make sure that our young people know the truth of the Bible, who at the just mere mention of a name can tell you the stories that are associated with it. I thank you for those young people. I thank you for the people that are guiding them. As we study today, I hope that we can start understanding our own weaknesses and how we are approached and how we can avoid that. In your name we pray. Amen. So 2 sermons ago, I did a sermon on knowing your enemy. So who is our enemy? Satan, right? So all these conflicts we see in the world, the battles, the arguments, everything that's happening. While I 100%, I can't do the job I do without 100% believing in accountability, who is the underlying creature making all that happen? It's Satan, right? Hopefully we can all agree on that. So why is it important to know who your enemy is? So knowing who your enemy is allows us to respond properly. What I find is, been to thousands of calls, thousands of them. Most of them involve conflict. Most of the conflict deals with people not knowing how to navigate the conflict. So instead of being analytical about it, they are emotional about it. I think it's kind of been a driving theme of mine for the last couple of sermons that we have to be able to take the emotion out of something and analyze the elements of what is truly at play and work the problem. That's a military tactic, right? It's not something that we don't do as adults. We certainly do it, but we don't view it in that approach of let's work the problem. Deal with what you can deal with. But to work the problem, you got to know what the problem is. To know what the problem is, you got to know its source, right? So if you feel as if you're being attacked, are you more likely to respond analytically or emotionally? Think about that for yourself. Are you an emotional response person, or are you someone who thinks about the facts, takes the emotion out of it, and can process it, working the problem? Most of us can eventually get to the work in the problem, and the goal in conflict resolution, even if it's internal, is to get to the point where you can work the problem quicker and quicker and quicker, right? That we become experts of monitoring and resolving our own conflicts because we know how to analyze the circumstance. But if you don't know, one, who the enemy is, and two, how the enemy is coming at you, are you more likely to be analytical or emotional? More likely to be emotional, right? You're almost like a cornered cat, a cornered lion. You're just going to swing, right? Blindfolded no matter what happens, right? So what are the pitfalls of an emotional response? Anyone ever responded emotionally to something right off the get-go? Yeah? What are the pitfalls? Say that louder, I can't hear you. It's not good behavior? Yeah, it's usually not good behavior. Say that again? You get in trouble when you deal with things emotionally, don't you? We ever see these videos of the cops usually results in an internal and someone losing their job, and what do you see in the officer? Do you see a calm, analytical approach, or do you see a ton of emotion? Roar! They hawk out, right? Yeah, get all angry, get on the Mr. Potato Head angry eyes, and they, let me tell you. Like, well, that's not going to go well for you, Skippy. Yeah, you got to kind of... Now, it's funny because it is a tactic to, with conflict resolution, to slide up and down the emotional scale. If someone's emotional and you can't get them to calm down, maybe we up the energy to bring them down, right? So that is a tactic. So sometimes when you see that in our first responders, maybe it is intentional. What you're looking for is the minute our person we're talking with calms down, what is that first responder's response? Do they bring it down? That's how you know they're flowing through that that training that they have, and it's intentional. So An emotional response, focused, unfocused. Unfocused, right? I mean, you're focused on the emotion, but you're not really focused on the resolution, are you? We're so worried about getting our thoughts and our side out there, and we do it with the presentation of, this is why I feel right. And how many of you in emotion double, triple, and quadruple down, even if you're wrong? Anyone know anyone like that? I know people like that. They're very frustrating. One of the things about a Christian walk is humility, right? Humility tends to help you avoid doubling and tripling down on something, right? If you're wrong, you just kind of accept it. Acknowledge it. Don't just like, well, yeah, I shouldn't have done that. We have to deal with when we do something wrong, right? So, let's talk about being attacked for a minute. One of the trainings that we get to participate in as a police officer, and actually Brooke is an EMT for Dorchester County and just went to very similar training with the same company. It's called hood training. Anyone know what hood training is? Anyone want to guess? Hood, H-O-O-D. So they put you in this big old helmet. They put you in a room where the lighting is that of a bar or a very intimate restaurant. There's 7 or 8 different doors coming into or out of the room. And then when they put you in this big old helmet to protect you from getting hurt, they then put a hood over top of it so you can't see. And then they play a bunch of loud noise. I mean loud. It's not music. It's just things falling and collapsing, and you can't hear anything going on around you. You can't focus on anything. And then they go, and they take the hood off, and you got to deal with whatever's in front of you. On the police side of things, we usually have to deal with someone punching us in the face or shooting us or trying to stab us. The whole point is training. The whole point is to raise your stress level. See how you respond under stress when you are attacked. Now, your first couple times through the hood, it probably just looks like a bowl of soup. It ain't good. You kind of fumble through it. Then they take you and they train you, give you some different techniques, and then you bring you back in at the end of the training, put you back through the hood, and you get to assess, wow, now I understand. Now I understand the techniques they wanted us to learn. But one of the things that I am able to do when I am attacked, when I am physically attacked, is I'm able to work the problem. And this comes from me. I've been studying martial arts since I was 14. And it's the same style. Our teacher in the academy was actually my teacher's teacher. So I never had any conflict in what I was learning. That was a blessing. But all those years of training taught me how to work the problem of an attack. To take a hit and still fight. Can you guys take a hit and still fight? How many of you think you can take a hit and still be in the fight? 2, 3 hands. Take 4. Taking a hit's not an easy thing to do. You know, it doesn't matter how skilled a fighter you are, how much of a warrior you are. The fight is won by the person who gets the first good hit in. You know that? I don't watch MMA, but if you watch some of these fights they have, a lot of times the person who's expected to win doesn't win because they got the bell rung. Takes one good hit, take you out of the fight. So can you take a hit and stay in the fight? You know how to tuck your chin. You know how to avoid being hit. Those are all important things, right? You got to work it one problem at a time. There's a punch coming in your face, you got 2 choices. Well, 3. Take the hit, block it, or avoid it. Those are your choices. That is your current problem, right? But one of the things that we need to ensure here, we just kind of analyze when people deal with things emotionally, whether it's, what was my terminology? Is it focused or unfocused? How about controlled or uncontrolled? When you are dealing with something emotionally, is your response controlled or uncontrolled? Emotion's raw, isn't it? You say what comes to mind. How many times do we say something we wish we could take back? Or we just know as soon as those syllables leave our mouth, like, that just dug me a hole. Should not have done that. Yeah, We do that a lot, don't we? We're not in control. Of the thousands of calls I've been to, the one thing lacking in every single one of them is control. On all sides, very few people, there's very little control. So why do they call the police? They call the police to control the situation. Things have gotten to the point that they can't resolve them. We need someone to control the circumstance. We lack self-control. So where does that lack of self-control come from? What are the influences? Who's the enemy? Satan. How many times does Satan outright attack you? To your face, fists flying. Was that his mode of doing things? No, he's a little bit of a chess player, isn't he? He's not attacking you a full frontal attack. He's coming at you from whatever angle he sees as your weakness. And this is why my sermon is called Know Your Weakness. Because Satan certainly does know your weakness. He knows where your thoughts go astray. He knows if you're someone who's busy keeping up with the Joneses and you got to put a new truck in the driveway when you see your neighbors putting new trucks in the driveway, and you're making the poor financial choice because you're trying to keep up with aesthetics. He knows all those things. So we're going to look at how Satan attacks our weaknesses and how we can respond to those attacks or even prevent them. So I'm going to tell you, this is a joke. So just know that I'm trying to be funny. All right? I'm going to tell the joke right because apparently I told it wrong this week and Brooke wouldn't let me get through the joke. So when I was telling it to someone else. Yeah, I'm calling you out. All right, so visualize the African plain. We're on the African plain. There's a dog on the African plain, right? One of those wild African dogs. He's just chilling. Comes across a pile of lion bones. About the time he realizes he's in a pile of lion bones, here comes a lion. He goes, oh man, whew, that's a big lion, what do I do? And the lion's on the hunt, he's on the prowl. So the dog immediately reaches down, grabs one of those bones, starts chewing on it. Says, man, that lion was delicious. Wish I had another one. The lion says, forget this. He takes off the other direction. Dog's like, I escaped that one. Well, the dog didn't know there was a monkey in the tree. He happened to be friends with the lion. So the monkey catches up with the lion and says, yo, hey, man. That dog tricked you. He didn't kill that lion. That was all to get you to go away. The lion says, you serious? He's like, yeah, man, he got you good. So, man, hop on. So puts a monkey on his back, man, he takes off for that dog. They catch up to the dog. Dog sees him coming. At the time they get an earshot, he goes, where is that monkey? I told him over an hour ago. So Satan is thinking ahead, isn't he? He's always outsmarting us, always ready to respond with the next line that keeps us on our toes, right? Keeps us doubting ourselves. You think that lion doubted himself with that monkey on his back? I think it was real. I think he'd go, wait a minute here. What did I just get myself into? And I tell this joke to highlight the fact that that's the way Satan works. He exploits obvious weaknesses and even weaknesses we don't yet know about. In today's world, it's gotten to the point, let's talk about attacks. Name an attack that we know about. A famous attack. How about Pearl Harbor? That was an attack, wasn't it? 9/11's an obvious one, right? That was an attack. I'm not getting political here. We're not going to discuss the politics of it. Charlie Kirk, was that an attack? Trump's assassination attempt, was that an attack? Yes. We consider that an attack because it's physical, it's in our face, and we can see it. But what about the attacks that aren't physical? Isn't it interesting now that almost every disagreement people have, watch the news. The news is so frustrating anymore because it's not news, right? It's always a panel of opinion pieces. And they give you a little blurb and they go, what do you think about this? And now they don't even have real journalists. It's a comedian and it's someone that wrote a book. And just like a cooking book. Like, what do you think about this political turmoil? And the minute they disagree, they feel like they're being attacked. Isn't it interesting that just a conversation can be an attack? And I don't say that to minimize it. I think that a conversation can be an attack because I think that Satan puts people in our lives to make us weak. He puts situations in our lives that weaken our resolve, that make us react differently, that make us react emotionally and not analytically, so that our Christian persona starts to fade. And if our Christian persona starts to fade, then he starts looking at, what can I make of this person now? Because if Jesus is looking to mold us in his light, Satan is doing the same thing. So if Satan's our true enemy, we've got to start looking at every event that contains conflict or controversy through his lens. Not the lens of the attacker, not the lens of the victim, but try to put yourself in the eyes of Satan. How many times do we ask with the loss of a loved one, why did this happen? Right? We're going to come back to that in a minute. So why does Satan pursue us in this way? What's his purpose? Was it just to end a life? Satan can do that anytime he wants, can't he? Can't Satan just take a life? We do it all the time, don't we? Look at the murder rates in Chicago and Baltimore, and Easton averages 1 murder a year. We went 10 years without one, and somehow we still managed the 1 murder a year average because we've caught up. Happens. Some years you have none, some years you have 2. 1 a year isn't bad, but you consider our reported population is about 14,000. That's not great. So you start looking at this as Satan in his lens, and remember that Satan has layers to his approach. He's playing a chess game. Don't be caught playing checkers against a chess master. Okay? Satan's playing a chess game. It's a long game, isn't it? Dude's been playing it against us for 7,000 years. We don't know how long the conflict in heaven took, but we know that the earth's about 7,000 years old, and man, he's been playing it for a while. And he's tripped up a lot of good people. He really has. He's changed entire demographics of people, like the cities. We see it in the Bible. Sodom and Gomorrah were so sinful they had to be destroyed. At one point in time, God wiped out the entire earth with the flood because Satan had his influence. And he had corrupted it so much there was no way back. And Satan is a manipulator, isn't he? Does his best work when he's able to work in the shadows. So let's look at, we're going to do an obvious one here. Let's go to Job, if you want to follow along. This is going to be fast. So Job chapter 1. It almost immediately starts off with this conversation between Satan and God. And Satan accuses God of protecting Job, and God says, okay, go ahead and test him, right? Just go ahead. You can't touch him, but go ahead and hurt him. So right there in chapter 1, verse 6, we see Job's first test. And in this time, let me find the right verse here. Let's go down to verse 13. The challenge was given. God accepts. Satan goes out to do his deed. Verse 13, one day when Job's sons and daughters were feasting and drinking wine at the oldest brother's house, a messenger came to Job and said, the oxen were plowing and the donkeys were grazing nearby, and the Sabaeans came and attacked and carried them off. They put the servants to the sword, and I'm the only one who has escaped. So, what happened there? Job lost a huge part of his wealth in his workforce. How would you guys feel if you owned a business and you lost your workforce and everything that they were responsible for at one time? Do you feel like you had just lost a piece of yourself, all your effort, gone? Okay. Well, let's keep reading, because in the same day, while he was still speaking, another messenger came and said, the fire of God fell from the sky and burned up the sheep and the servants, and I am the only one who has escaped you. So Job had another aspect to his business. He owned sheep. And in one strike from heaven, I don't know if I would consider that probably lightning, there was a fire that took out all of his sheep and all of his servants. So now you've lost another aspect of your livelihood. You've lost all the servants. Has anyone ever been an employee or employer? Did you care about your employees? If they had a family issue, did you try to help them resolve it, give them the afternoon off, go take care of it? If they had a baby, you gave them time off for it. If their wife had a baby, hey, go be with your family. Give them off the holidays. You do things because you care about them. I work shifts for my guys so they can have off. Because we're understaffed, and to take a vacation day means someone's got to work for them. I care about my people. So you lose your people, and you don't just think about all the sheep he lost. He thinks about how that affects the lives of their people, their families. All that happens. How would you feel if now 2/3 of your livelihood and all the people under you who you cared about are now gone while doing a job for you? Is that pretty demoralizing? While he was still speaking, yet another messenger came and said, your sons and daughters, make sure I'm on pace here. Oh no, verse 17, we're a little bit ahead of ourselves. While he was still speaking, another messenger came and said, the Chaldeans formed 3 raiding parties and swept down on your camels and carried them off. They put the servants to the sword, and I am the only one who escaped to tell you. So now the third portion of Job's livelihood, of his business, of the wealth he had built, was just wiped out and taken, and the servants were all killed. Not something you can easily rebuild, is it? No. So, just to put the crescendo on us, this is, by the talks of this story, this is all in one day and one afternoon he's getting this news. While he was still speaking, yet another messenger came and said, your sons and daughters were feasting and drinking wine at the oldest brother's house, when suddenly a mighty wind swept in from the desert and struck the 4 corners of the house. It collapsed on them, and they are dead. I am the only one who survived to tell you. So, why is this important when it talks about understanding how Satan attacks? What are elements of what is Job left with? Is he alienated? Say it louder. All he has is his own life. He's alienated. His wealth is gone. He can't easily rebuild. Does that sound like something Satan would like to do to all of us? How do you feel more challenged surrounded by your family and other Christians? Or do you feel more challenged when no one is reachable and you're out there by yourself? Do you feel more vulnerable? Yeah. Satan likes to divide and conquer. It is a tactic of tacticians war-wise for millennia. It's in the art of war. Divide and conquer. And there are many ways to do it. You can divide them by finance, divide them by political party, divide them by simply splitting the army right down the middle with your attack. But you can divide and conquer. And it is a very healthy tactic if you want to win. And if you want to play a long game without suffering losses, man, it's an easy thing to do. Chapter 2 talks about Job's second test. So now Satan and God have had another conversation. And one of the things that we can take out of the end of chapter 1 is that Job did not turn on God. He didn't rebuke God. It was just things that happened, right? So Satan talks with God, and God says, well, have you considered Job? Because he appears to have withstood you. And Satan goes, well, you wouldn't let me touch him. So yeah, I mean, if a guy still has his health, he can carry on. And God says, okay, but you can't kill him. So then what does he do? He takes his health from him, doesn't he? If we read a little bit further in chapter 2, Job basically couldn't move without feeling misery. Right? Boils all over his body. Job already feels alienated. His business is gone. His wealth is gone. The only person he has left in his life are a few friends we're about to read about, and who? His wife. What does his wife say? Curse God and die. Whew. you imagine if your husband or wife told you, your life is so miserable, you're better off just cursing God and dying? Go ahead, Jen. It's an interesting thought. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that also I don't know that she rebuked God. She told Job to do it. So, yeah, I think that I think God, we have a forgiving God, don't we? He's willing to forgive us for almost anything. The one thing you can't do is rebuke the Holy Spirit, right? So then the wife tells him rebuke. So now Job is completely isolated, is he not? Because he refuses. So then at the end of chapter 2, going into chapter 3, Job's 3 friends arrive. And what do? They blame Job, don't they? This is all your fault because of the life you have lived. And do you know this goes on for like 38 chapters? This is a long conversation to the point that the young guy in the room who has no business talking at all finally says, well, I'm going to say something too. And they all tell him, you deserve this. You earned this. There is something wrong about you. And yet Job still does what? He still maintains, right? So the reason we're studying Job right now is because Satan came at him a multitude of ways, did he not? First, he took his wealth from him, his possessions, and his ability to earn more. It'd be kind of tough if I lost my job. I'm the main breadwinner in the family. We would really be struggling. In police work, you can actually lose your job, have your certification flagged, and you can't be a cop anymore. Anywhere. It'd be tough to lose that profession when it's all I've trained for 25 years. That's all I know how to do. So imagine your ability to do what you do is gone. And then, okay, maybe I can change professions. Maybe I can be a contractor. And then Satan takes what? Takes his health from him. Makes it so he can't even move. And then while he's sitting there in misery, he essentially takes his wife from him. She turns on him. That's a betrayal, isn't it? The fact that she says you're better off being dead means she doesn't want you in her life anymore. And then your 3 friends come over, and they obviously are very religious, are they not? They're very faith-based. Everything they rebuke him for is out of faith. So where they should have come with encouragement, they came with insults and accusations and condemnation. So imagine having all those elements thrown at you because Satan's only trying to get one guy. He was only after one person because of a conversation he had with God. That was it. Is Satan satisfied with one person? No. He wants this whole deck of cards to collapse, doesn't he? This whole house of cards. Well, as I was saying, Satan does his best work when he manipulates. It's easy for him to take a life. It's more difficult and more of a challenge for him to influence a follower away from God. While this is more difficult, the reward is greater, is it not? Taking a life means one person ceased to exist. It seems to be a hard truth, but to Satan, that's not a hard thing to do. If he can influence a believer away from God, what does that look like for the rest of the world, for the people that influence that person has in their life? Do you get where I'm going at here? I come up here every month and I preach a sermon to you guys. And if I was someone who faltered in my faith and became someone who rebuked God, what would that do to you? A lot of you have known me since I was 2 years old. Little Timmy running around this church. You know, you've had a lot to do with raising me and making me the person that I am. How would you feel if I rebuked God? Would you lose a little bit of faith? It's possible, isn't it? So think about, just like I believe in the power of bringing one person to God, that one person could be, first off, every life matters, right? God will leave the 99 to save the one. But that one person you bring to God could be the person, the next Martin Luther. They could be the next profound person who leads hundreds. You don't have to save thousands of people. You just have to plant seeds and hope that one of them turns into something. But the same thing is true for Satan taking one of God's followers away from him. One person, the right person, can lead thousands, if not millions, astray. Back in the early 90s, down in South America, there was a minister who renamed himself Jesus de Cristo. He was Jesus Christ, and he had over 1 million followers in his church every weekend. One person. 1 million people taught incorrectly. That's tough. That is huge. So he loves doubt, talking about Satan. He loves turmoil, and he likes to watch the world burn. Anyone ever known anyone who likes to watch the world burn? Ian says he has. They tend to be a person you start to avoid, aren't they? Someone said something. You say Congress? Yeah. I had a superior who liked to I'll tell you the story. He walked in the roll call one day. All he did was make a blanket statement about we weren't getting a pay raise or something, and walked out. I knew for a fact it wasn't true. It was a complete lie. It was a rumor. But I was facing him as he walked out of the room, and all the yelling started. And he's just smiling. So I followed him down the hall. I said, "Why did you do that?" He said, "Sometimes I just like to watch the world burn." I'm like, my goodness. Everybody's ready. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. We're ready to go fight crime, save lives, and now we hate everybody. And it was just for fun. If Satan were to reveal himself to us today in his true nature, I've heard this said before, I tried to find the quote, I can't find it, but someone said this. If Satan were to reveal himself in his true nature, his true glory, would it be hard for the whole world to look at him and say, no? Right? We'd run. Even the worst person in the world can't stand up against him. He would make us all cower, wouldn't he? So Satan doesn't reveal himself. He works through others. He works through our weaknesses. So a couple weeks ago when I gave that sermon, I talked about the movie Bruce Almighty, and we talked about if someone prays for patience, does God give them patience, or does he give them the opportunity to be patient? We ran through that a little bit. Think about that again. And think about, if Satan takes away your wealth, does God give you the opportunity to earn more? How many bad decisions have you made financially? I've made a few. And yet God still gives me the opportunity, the forgiveness, to earn a little bit of trust. If Satan attacks my health, God will heal you. Scars are good. They remind you of what you went through, aren't they? I really am not downplaying someone's bad health. I really am not. But when you have those good days, your bad health is a reminder that God is still there, isn't it? It can be. I know it's difficult for some. If Satan isolates you and takes your happiness and optimism away, does God not put others in your life to sustain you? Think about it. At your worst, you've had your worst day. Maybe you've lost a loved one. Life is just throwing so many challenges at you that you can't handle it. How many times have you gotten that random phone call or that random text or just run into somebody and go, man, I needed that today? It's constant. God puts people in my life all the time that give me encouragement and uplift me. Satan is the enemy. He's smart and cunning. And like I said, he doesn't attack with a frontal assault. He chips away at you slowly. He wants that slow fade because it's fun to watch someone burn. It's also harder for us, right? If someone were to just turn 180 degrees and turn away from God, we go, man, we don't know what happened, but that's horrible. But if we watch them slowly chip away and just make choices contrary to what we know they know is the right thing to do, it chips away at us as well. It absolutely does. So now we know how Satan attacks, that he's waiting in the shadows, he's looking to exploit our weaknesses. How do we rebuff those attacks? That's a good question, isn't it? Well, I started off the sermon by saying we work the problem, don't we? That military tactic. Work the problem. Do what you can do. If you've lost all your finances, first thing is acknowledge it. 2, how did I lose them? Right? The first thing you got to do is stop the bleeding. Right? Is my money still being sucked out of me? How do I stop that? So you got to stop the bleeding. Cut it off. Maybe it's your credit cards. Maybe I know people who everything is financed up to their earlobes. And there's no way out for them. Maybe foreclosure or something. Maybe you stop the bleeding that way. I don't know, but you had to stop the bleeding. After you've stopped the bleeding, the next problem is what? That you need more wealth? Or that you need to meet your needs? You need to eat, you need to sleep, right? Work the problem. The first thing you got to do is you got to be able to eat. But how do I sustain that? Maybe you got to go to 7-Eleven and get the minimum wage job and eat ramen noodles for a bit, right? You got to work the problem. And work what you can control. It's hard. It's an easy thing to say. You don't worry about the things you can't control. But if you can't control it, you've got to compartmentalize that and go, that's not my problem. My problem is what is directly in front of me and what I can control. So we had to do our best to take our emotion out of it and analyze the facts. The first fact we had to analyze is, this is an attack, and how is he attacking me? What does he gain, and what's the counter move? So we talked about a little bit. If Satan's attacking you in a small way, what is he gaining? Is he making us angry? Is he giving us anxiety? And then that anxiety, how does that affect others? How does it affect me? Do I pray when I'm anxious? Maybe I do, maybe I don't. Maybe I haven't made that my go-to. You have to start analyzing how you're being attacked. And then what is the end game there? How is it affecting you individually? So back to the hood that I was talking about. So does it serve me to go to such a training experience and only experience it once? Think about that. They teach you that the best way to learn something is to learn it in the classroom, practice it, and then what? Teach it. Right? That's why as you progress through grade school into high school, by the time you're in high school, you're giving presentations, aren't you? Because teaching is the final way of learning something. Right? When you're in first grade, you sit in the classroom and you learn all about phonics and you learn about 1 + 1 = 2. But when you get to high school, you're doing chemistry presentations. I don't know anything about chemistry, but I did a presentation. I mean, I got through it. But that's one way that you learn. So training matters. You have to train. So going to something once is not enough. Is praying once enough? No. Is studying the Bible once enough? No, it's not enough. Training is repetition. Repetition makes good practice. Good practice makes perfection. Perfection makes you ready to act instinctually. You want to get to the point where you can act instinctually. And our instincts need to lead us to, I'm just going to play this out because I've been talking for a bit, prayer and study, right? Those should be our instincts. So they should be something we do regularly when we're not being pressured, so that when we are pressured, it's what we fall back to, right? You fall back to your training. It has to be proper training. They used to find that police officers who carried revolvers and were killed on the line of duty, they would find them with brass in their hands. Brass is the spent cartridge. Does anybody know why? Well, when you go to reload a 6-shooter, On a revolver, you got a speed loader here. You dump out the casings, the empty ones, speed load the next one in, or put all 6 of your bullets in, flip it over, and you're back on target, right? Well, when you're on the range, you got to clean up after yourself. So you dump them in your hand, stick them in your pocket before you get your new bullets. So they're finding cops with useless items in their hands because it just became practice. They were holding the empty shells in their hands. Do not get caught holding empty shells. Let it go. Let it hit the tarmac. A buddy of mine is shooting with a semi-automatic gun now, and he's like, well, they teach, I'm learning to, shoot, and then there's 2 ways. You need to quick eject the mag, or you can catch it and throw it in your pouch. And I don't like my mag sitting on the ground. Well, that's bad practice, isn't it? Because when you're in the gunfight, you got to flip it out, reloading it back on target. And it seems, I know I'm talking about something I know about, and guns don't interest everybody. But what I'm talking about is don't get caught with the empty brass in your hand because you were doing bad training. That's why the empty brass is bad, right? Because while you're worried about cleaning up the mess you might make, you haven't resolved the problem at hand. We're working one problem at a time, right? That's the problem. The attack is the problem, not the cleanup afterwards. And I don't have an analogy of what those casings represent other than they can represent bad training. Pay attention to what you're studying. If it doesn't come from the Bible, it's bad training. If it's not Bible-based, it's bad training. Be trained and be ready. We have to pray. We have to study God's Word. There's another element here that a lot of us miss on because we work in an isolated world. COVID-19 did a great job of isolating us, did it not? We did it in this very church. We separated rows because we were worried about a cold. We stopped coming to church because we were worried about a cold. And I forever regret that. And I'm not lecturing you guys on what you should do when health issues are at concern. I'm not going to tell you how to do it. I regret that. Okay? It created a separated society. And because it created a separated society, the one thing we are not currently doing when we have conflict, when we have trouble, that we're not even training for and practicing for, is spending time together with other Christians. We leave this church, we go home with our family, probably by 7, 8 o'clock, we're all in separate rooms doing our own thing, and we are not communing. That's a problem, is it not? The Bible tells us we're supposed to commune. No man's meant to walk alone. Jesus had his disciples. He had time alone, but he still leaned on them. Not that he wasn't the strongest one in the group, but he set an example, did he not? He had people outside of his disciples who he loved, right? Lazarus, Mary, plenty of them, right? So we have to train to remove the emotion. We have to make sure that even though we're removing the emotion, that we're not emotionless. Analyze the situation, identify the enemy behind the scenes, and then work the problem one step at a time. Folks, when Satan reveals himself to you, remember that God is stronger, right? That God is more powerful, and he's ready to defend you and work for you. But if you haven't trained, if you don't have the tools at hand to call on God, how is he supposed to come help you? If you don't know 911 is how you get the police to your door, then how do you get the police to your door? Right? Understand how Satan is coming for you. Pray to God for the strength it takes to withstand that attack. Pray that he stands with you. And Satan doesn't come at you full force. Remember, he's willing to work the slow fade. Prepare yourself to stand for a long time. Longer than you think you're capable of. We've all had those attacks that last far longer than we're ready to deal with. Mr. Christopher, you are a really good example of someone you suffered a heart issue that has really transformed the way you've had to approach your life on a daily basis. It's a long process coming back. You've told me that more than once. But are you quitting? No, we don't quit. We want sprinkles, right? Winners get sprinkles on your ice cream. We're playing for sprinkles. The last thing I'll say is just a little thought that I had. I love those T-shirts, the warrior, like stand fast. I love them because they look cool. To me, it's not a mantra. I have a couple. But it got me thinking about the warrior. Any fool, and we've seen it, can put on all the garb. You can buy it online now. Look like a soldier, right? You put on the helmet, have a nice weapon with you, all the gear. You look like you're ready. Like, man, I really wouldn't want to tangle with that guy. But you're not really a warrior, are you? Because the warrior, the real warrior, is where? Is he on your shirt or is he in your heart? He's in your heart, isn't he? Your warrior is what sits inside you and drives you every day to fight against every single thing Satan is attacking you with. Everything. It doesn't make you prepared to fight the enemy to wear a T-shirt. Satan doesn't fight that way. We had to be warriors, but we got to be warriors of the heart, of the mind, and of the spirit. And the only way we can do that is communing with God. That is the only way. There is no other approach than having a calm, analytical approach to it, taking the emotion out of it, and preparing yourself and training yourself under God's guidance to be ready for the way that Satan is going to attack you. So the warrior that you need is all around you. It's God at all times. And that's the end of my sermon today. Let's close with hymn number 612.